Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. Glad to have you guys here during this banking crisis period. March 14th, 2023, a Tuesday. Thank you for tuning in. Now, listen. Picture a guy, he's got a car, a nice car, right? And he's got this thing that he can siphon fluids out of the car. You know, most people put fluids into a car. What are the fluids? You know, brake fluid, transmission fluid, engine oil, antifreeze in the radiator, all these different fluids that have to be in a car and they have to be topped off. But he's got this little siphon hose where he can take a bit of fluid out, drain the fluid out. And what he's doing is he's driving the car to work and back every day. And every day he takes a little bit of fluid out, a little bit of antifreeze out, a little bit of engine fluid out, and everything else. So one morning comes, and the engine light's on because he's drained too much oil out of the engine, and he's drained too much antifreeze out of the radiator, and he's drained too much. He hasn't even got any window washing fluid left in the car. Everything's running dry. Brake fluid, everything. So he drives to work in the car that way. And the car boils over. And it overheats. And he's on the side of the road. Right? For a little while. But he calls in a company and they come in at AAA. He calls AAA or whatever. And they come in and they top off his antifreeze in his radiator. So he's off again, but the engine light's still on. Well, what's his plans? Well, the next morning he has plans of draining some more fluid out of the engine, some more engine oil out of the engine, even though the engine light's on. What do you think, out there, my audience, I'm asking you guys, what do you think's going to happen to that guy's car? Do you think he's going to be able to continue forever driving to work and back in that car, or is something going to completely break in the car eventually? In the car, they're not going to be able to fix it like they are able to add fluid to the antifreeze and get him going. They won't be able to get him going, will they? His engine's going to break one of these days driving to work. He's going to throw a rod in his engine, or he's going to break a valve or something because he's got no oil in the engine. The thing's going to break. His car's going to break. Well, Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, is doing exactly what that guy's doing to the car engine, except he's doing it to the economy. And this is like what happens with when they lost fluid in the radiator and the car overheated. That's what just happened. And they added some fluid to the radiator, and now they're going again. But you know what's eventually going to happen because they're still draining out the economy. They still got plans. I think they're going to raise 25 basis points again, even raise rates. So what caused the problem? They're going to go deeper. So sure, everything's okay for now. They've so far a $200 billion smooth over. That's what this is right here. They smoothed the whole thing over with $200 billion for now. Everything's hunky-dory okay for now. But they're going to break this economic engine. They're going to break this whole thing. Because they're going to continue on. As long as that stock market doesn't turn over big, and it's up today, they're going to keep tightening the screws. It's a no-brainer where we're going with this. I've been saying something. They're going to break the system. I've been telling you guys they are really going to break the system pretty soon. I can't tell you where that breakage is going to come from, but I can tell you it's probably going to be bigger than what just happened. Anyway, what just happened? Well, it looks to me, I'm not going to point fingers and say for sure this is what's happening, but it looks to me like a consolidation of the banking system. What they're doing is, look, the too big to fail banks right now are flooded with deposits. The really big boys. And so what are they doing? Well, they're draining out the banks they don't like. They don't want competition. And ultimately, these big boys right now, like Morgan Bank and J.P. Morgan Bank and Bank of America and the big banks, the real big ones, they're all happy this morning. They're like, rubbing their heads together. Oh boy, look, we're getting rid of the competition. All the smaller banks, we're eating them up. They're gone. They're gonna be gone. Yeah, but you know what? There's only room for one bank in all this, ultimately. Evil laugh, Glenn's evil laugh. There's only room for one bank. And that's the Federal Reserve Bank. So they should think twice, because the Fed'll eat them up just as quick as they eat up the smaller fish. It's just like that thing that shows the fish eating the fish. You know, the real big fish. He's ready and poised to eat the little bit smaller fish, and a little bit smaller fish eat a little bit smaller fish, all the way down to the poor little minnow. This is what they're like. They're like a bunch of sharks swimming in a shark tank, and they don't care about you. They don't care what happens to you. None of them do. They're just so fat and rich. You know, another comparison I would give it to is they're like a bunch of hogs, you know, in a hog pen, and they're just waiting for the corn. You know? Anyway, listen, guys. Getting in there and taking a look at the markets today. The system's going to really break bad, because they're ignoring the warning signal. This was the warning signal, trying to tell them. And, you know, Powell, he ain't going to drive down the road anymore in that car. He ain't going to, once the engine breaks, they can drive with the engine light for a while and say, woo, look, we did it. No problems. But they're ignoring that engine light. And this thing's going to break. Boys, this thing's going to break. Might be a little while down the line as they continue to draw $95 billion. Is it 95? I think it's $95 billion a month in quantitative tightening out of the system every month. This is the money that made this system to begin with, and they're going to suck it out. And you think it's not going to fall? That's like a three-legged table, and you tearing one of the legs away and saying, "Oh, it's not going to fall. It'll stand up." No way. No way. This thing's, if they continue, the only way they can... See, I warned about them doing all this. I said they were going to break things. You know, and then they'd have to fix it. Then the next thing I said is then they'll have to fix it. So go back to that analogy of Powell driving the car, you know, and the engine lights on and everything. Don't worry, they're the government. When they burn the engine up and destroy the engine, of the economic engine of this system, they're going to have to put in enough money to get the engine going again. This is how government works. You know? They come along, like in the army or the government or anything, you know, they'll come along and say, remove that screw. So the guy goes and he grinds the screw off, you know? And then they say, now replace that screw. And he puts the same screw back in that he just tore out. I mean, it's just... This is what happens when you give them an endless money printing ability. That they can just smooth anything over anytime they want. They get control. As Silicon Valley Bank goes down, you know, and what do? Well, sure, $200 billion. No problem. We'll make everybody whole. All the creditors whole and everything. You know how much money that is? $200 billion. And somehow, what are they doing? Some sort of weird book entries or something? I don't know what they're doing, but somehow it's not going to be paid for by the taxpayer. How are they doing that? How? I want to know how. How's the taxpayer not going to pay for this? And all the other screw-ups that they do, you pay for it all. And how do you pay? It's a tax you don't know anything about. It's a weird little tax, like you've never seen before. It's called inflation. It's a tax that's unseen, because your dollar's still a dollar. The only thing is, you notice the prices are twice as high as they were last year. That means they've robbed half your dollar away from you. Not to count income taxes and inheritance taxes and taxes on tax. On top of all that. So where do you end up? Well, at this point, when you earn $1, you'll probably get to keep about 25 cents right now. By the time inflation's done with you, by the time all these taxes are done with you, by the time everything's done with you. So 3/4 of your work goes to them for their incompetence. And this means Americans have to work harder. This is why you need more than one job now at this point. At this point, 2 jobs don't even cut it. Soon it'll be 3 jobs, 4 jobs, 5 jobs. How many plates can we all spin out here to try to eat? Just to eat. And you don't call that slavery? As soon as I'm going to tell you when slavery begins and when working class people end up not being working class people anymore, not middle class or anything like that, and when slavery begins. Slavery begins when you can't make enough money to save anything. When you're just feeding yourself, paying for your transportation to get to and from work, and feeding yourself and just barely keeping a roof over your head, working 2 jobs, that's not a system. That's not a free system anymore. That's a system where every person within it is a slave. Because you're just working for room and board, basically. And you think you're free, but you're not free. You're just working for room and board. And I'm not talking to you from a position where I'm above that. That's exactly what I'm doing. And that's probably exactly what most of the people in my audience are doing now at this point. You're just working to keep a roof over your head and keep a transportation and keep food on the table. And you're falling behind a little bit as they tighten the screws on all of us. Well, you know where this leads ultimately in the end? To a civilization collapse. Worldwide civilization collapse. And then a rebuilding of the entire system. And I'm going to tell you, a civilization collapse is not pretty because, okay, just picture all the things that civilization provides us with. Sanitation, emergency services, policing, food, water, electricity, telecommunications. When civilization collapses, civilization doesn't give you any of those things unless you can give those things to yourself. And think about all the people when civilization collapses that won't have those things. It'll want to take those things away from you for themselves if you still have those things. Right? So what in a civilization collapse, what would all these bad people out there who are causing these problems, who aren't putting the fluid in the car anymore, who are draining the fluid out of the car to try to make civilization collapse, what about them? Well, they're just going to crawl into their underground bunkers, into their luxury facilities, and slam the door shut behind them and say, oh, well, we did it. Yeah, they're going to do it all right if they keep on. It might take a little while because as they keep pumping these pumps of money out, keep propping the system up and stuff and creating more and more inflation, ultimately it's going to take them a little while to end this Ponzi scheme that they created. They did it all to us. Don't forget who's responsible for all of this. It's not the people. You know, and it says we the people. It's not the people that are responsible. It's the people that have been put in charge. They're responsible for all of this problems that we're going through. We're going through what they're putting us through. Not us putting us through it. They're putting us through it because they're in charge. I mean, shouldn't that just be simple logic? It's not our fault. It's their fault. Because they're the ones who have the say-so. We don't have any say-so anymore. Even if we say we don't like it. Even if we protest. They've got a new tactic. You know what the new tactic is? I first seen it develop with the start to develop with the protests in France, and the yellow vests. And the tactic basically works like this: they just wait you out. They don't say anything. If the protesters get really whatever, they just send out more cops to quash it, and they just wait. It takes weeks, it takes months. They know that sooner or later the protesters are going to get hungry or tired or whatever, and they're going to go home. And then they just ignore everything that the protesters basically said. And this is what they're doing too with the financial system. The banks, this is like a bank protest. The banks are like, we're going under, and they're just basically ignoring it. Dump a bunch of money on it, smooth it over, and ignore it. We've just filled another pothole. $200 billion into the banking system. Now that should shut them up for a little while, and now let's move on to bigger and better things. Who's going to pay for it? Well, somehow they're saying that the taxpayer ain't going to pay for this, but I don't see how they're going to do that. How they're going to shuffle that little thing around, I don't know. Anyway, listen, here you go. 11:31 on cryptos. Cryptos are going up now. They might have just started the cryptos into bulling again. Bitcoin's 25,936. Ethereum's at 1772. It looks to me like today they're going straight up practically, the cryptos. So cryptos are catching a bid. Silver price today, we're looking at 21.81. Now we didn't check gold, did we? Okay, so we're going to go over here and check gold. Gold's at 1906. It's down $7.60 today. The Dow Jones is up big. 435 points to the upside, 32,254. So this is what happens. We get enormous bank crashes and everything else. Bank runs in the United States. We get an economy that's going down the toilet hole and everything, and the stock market goes up. It's gone beyond bizarre. But because it's beyond bizarre, when it all comes crashing down, don't be surprised. S&P 500, 39.29. Because, I tell you guys, I'm not giving it very long. They're going to keep these screws tightening. And next time it might not be the banks that fail, the small banks that fail. It might be something really big, like the derivatives market suddenly just goes pow. Or something completely collapses with it. I can't tell you exactly where it's going to come from next. But what I can tell you is you just can't drain all the liquidity out of the system and not have some sort of a big... And so that's why I gave you guys the analogy of the car, and the engine light's on. So this time it was the radiator, ran out of fluid, the car overheated. They fixed that. Next time it's going to be the engine, the main body of it. And you ain't going nowhere once you have a piston roll across the ground and the engine cracks in half. Then you ain't going nowhere. And that's the economy. And that's what's going to be next. It's going to be bigger than this one. This was just the warning tremor. It's coming. The big one's coming. Crude oil today, 73.78. It's down $1.02. So basically, I guess what I'm telling you guys is the fireworks are not over. It's leading into the big, spectacular, big one. The big one's coming. And they ain't going to be able to fix it so easy without causing hyperinflation. So this thing's going to shift toward inflation. Now, they've already shown their hand. They've shown no matter what the problem is, no matter how big it is, they have to fix it. They're forced to fix it. They just can't leave it. Because it supports them. The system supports them in their lavish lifestyles. And if a huge problem develops in the system locks up, doesn't function, they have to get it functioning, regardless of what the cost is. So you just saw $200 billion. Sure, no problem. We fix that. What about when it's a $1 trillion problem? Well, they're going to have to fix it. A $10 trillion problem, they'll have to fix it. And in doing so, they'll destroy the purchasing power of your currency. And ultimately, this is what they really want. They want to, and this is the whole game plan, guys. Unlimited print and press. They can create as many currency units as they want. They can buy real things with those currency units, like gold, silver, mortgage-backed securities, everything, like your house. That's a real thing, your house. And it's packaged into a mortgage-backed security. You heard the Fed buys mortgage-backed securities. You buy in your house. They buy everything with this money they create from thin air, from nothing. Then, of course, they're going to inflate that money eventually. What they call money that they're creating from thin air, because they're buying real things with it, and it's just something from nothing. This is the biggest magic trick in the world. So then they buy everything else. They destroy the value of those currency units ultimately, and it's basically that it's like legalized robbing everybody from everything that you have away from you with these currency units that are valueless to begin with, that they can create from thin air. It's like a magic trick to get everything and give you nothing. It's the same old trick they pulled on the Indians to get I shouldn't call them Indians, Native Americans. It's the same old trick they pulled on the Native Americans to buy Long Island with a bunch of beads. They give them something that's almost worthless. Well, beads at least have some value. These currency units are giving you have no value whatsoever. And they're buying all your good stuff from you, your land, your houses, your everything. And then they make that worthless, and then they got everything. And this is allowed to do it because we don't understand it. It's when you start to understand this, you realize that this is them doing you over. Okay, listen, guys, I get carried away about all this, but somebody's got to get carried away about it. Because if you just sit there in the end, they're going to have you, you're not even going to have food or water or anything in the end. They'll just keep sucking. You'll just keep hearing that sucking sound with that currency, sucking it all away. Sucking your life away. You know? Okay, so today we're seeing the opposite in the bond market today, see? Yesterday, bond yields were falling, and they fell substantially. Today, they're raising, and they're raising substantially. 10-year at 3.62, and it's up 11 basis points, and the U.S. 30 years at 3.74, and it's up 7.6 basis points. So this is a rebounce in the bond yields today, you know, which indicates that they have smoothed this crisis over mostly now at this point. But it ain't. What I'm saying to you guys is just the beginning. This was basically just the warning, and they're not heeding it. So what's going to happen if you don't heed a warning? Well, the next big one's going to take you out. And that's the way with them. But they don't care. Because it doesn't really affect them until it hits them personally. Until they see the system start to slide and the system start to shake. And the system that supports them, then they care suddenly. Then they're like, oh my gosh, what have we done? We're going to take out the golden goose that gives us the golden eggs. And that's when they care. Suddenly. And you saw that over the course of the weekend. They were up all night talking about what they were going to do to solve this problem that they created in the banking system. Emergency. Fix it. Now they got it fixed. They can breathe a sigh of relief. They can go back to their bed on their yacht or wherever they're going, their posh suite, and sleep good again for now. But what I'm saying is it's just a temporary fix. It's all going to slide again. And you want to talk about sleepless nights. You wait until they have to repair the big damage that they do later. And it's not going to get away with the $200 billion. They're going to have to cost trillions to fix it next time. Dollar index today, 103.8. And the dollar's going sideways, which is another indicator that things have got a little bit more stability today. How much can the Fed fix? Well, they can fix anything. They got an unlimited printing press. Unlimited. Just remember that word, unlimited. But there is a cost. The cost is the purchasing power of the dollar. So, the bigger the problem that they fix, the more it's going to hurt the dollar. And the more it hurts the dollar, the more gold and silver is going to go up. And the more crypto is going to go up. So this $200 billion problem fixed. See how it's put gold and silver and crypto up a little some. What happens when it come along and it's a $10 trillion problem? Well, we're going to see equal movement in gold and silver to the upside to keep up with inflation. But what about the dollar itself? Well, it's what's inflating. It's what's losing its value. It's not going to go... A dollar's always going to be just a dollar. So see, like you got your silver coin, for instance. A 1 ounce silver coin. What's it worth right now? Well, they say it's worth, what is it, 21 something dollars and change. Well, what it's worth can go up priced in dollars. It could go up to 35, it could go up to 50, it could go up to 100. But the dollar's still going to be worth $1. But that means that the dollar doesn't purchase as much as it used to purchase. But that means your silver coin has kept up with inflation. And now the silver coin purchases as much in the future as it does now, maybe even more, depending on how panicked the people are to get it. And so, this is basically, we're living in an inflation world. When I talk hyperinflation, I'm talking about things costing more daily. Your gold and silver is going to keep up with that, so it's going to preserve your purchasing power. There's also no counterparty risk. You say, what's counterparty risk? A lot of you guys in my audience don't know. What in the heck's counterparty risk? Well, it's basically when you give somebody else your money, you're dependent upon them to give the money back to you. So you go to the bank. You give them a deposit. You give them your money. They put it in the bank account. They now have charge of that money, not you. That's what counterparty risk is. So when you keep real physical gold and silver, or if you keep cryptocurrencies and you have the private keys, then you have control over that money, not somebody else. That's what counterparty risk is. Thank you guys for listening to my show. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Have a great day. Bye-bye.